Tune in, tone up. Your one-stop shop for guitar tricks, tips, techniques and advice. With me, Gary Shilliday, and my own excellent teacher, Dan Davis. In Guitar Lesson 32, Dan and I take a look at some general ideas which you can take from David Gilmour's playing. He plays with such meaning and purpose and the most incredible tone, and yet what he plays is not usually technically too difficult. Using a style backing track, Dan and I look at how Gilmour uses dynamics, phrasing, bending, vibrato, and intelligent note choices connected to the chords which he plays over.
So Gary, you and I have been chatting about what to do today. We've covered so many different topics, and I hope people out there have found them interesting. I think our numbers of listeners that we can see are listening to our stuff hopefully reflects the fact that we're giving people what they're looking for. I had a thought regarding today. There's a name which pops up with monotonous regularity in the guitar world, and often pops up in circles that you would least expect it.
Who's that, Dan?
That would be Dave Gilmour.
Oh, Dave Gilmour.
From blues guys to hardened metalers, everyone loves Dave.
Yeah, Dave's the man.
He is. So what I wanted to delve into was a little bit of Dave Gilmour's style, but also what makes it tick. Why is it that his style is so popular? What does he do that others just don't do that makes the style and that sort of type of guitar playing work? Any thoughts? Penny for your thoughts, sir?
Great tone. Great tone is a starting point. You know, he sort of holds a note, he sustains a note, and just as you hear it decaying, he might hit the next one. He's got a few little bits he does like that. He's great at choosing chord tones and following a theme. His music has a lot of space in it. I think that's sort of true of the whole sustain thing as well. He's not one to fire hundreds of notes at you. His notes hang in the air. They're thick and mean something.
Presence.
They've got presence.
We were talking about his solo last time, his solo from On the Turning Away, and I said that opening note just hits you like a 10-ton truck. And it's so true. I personally think, he just has some great openers.
Yeah.
For solos, and he follows that theme through. But the irony is, although Pink Floyd's music is rich, multi-layered, it's interesting, it's not simplistic, the guitar playing that is so revered, which is used over the top of it, is rarely over-complexed. It's rarely, particularly as you say, notey or over-technical or anything like that. Now, there's room for all of those other sorts of playing, that's for sure. But what I think Dave Gilmour encompasses, which is why he's so popular amongst guitar players of hugely different genres, is he picks the good stuff and he delivers a message with economy. One could say that, maybe us guys who like to shred it up a little bit, is it that we can't quite deliver on that level? I don't know. Or is it that we like to do some of the other things? And maybe it's a little bit of both. I'm not sure. But to sustain an entire career for 40 years or more on really, for the most part, the minor pentatonic scale, and to have so many classic solos connected with such a straightforward style is really interesting. It's about economy, really, in terms of what he's got to say and how he decides to put it across to be the most effective.
He's a very intelligent player as well, I think. There seems to be something about it. I know a lot of that's kind of Roger Waters' production and, the way that he goes about things, but I think David Gilmour brings a certain intelligence to his solos and forethought. It makes you just feel like it is the way it must be. It couldn't be changed sometimes.
I think when somebody plays with a real particular style, Brian May is another one. Can you imagine another guitar player being in Queen?
No.
It's just bullying, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just
very unfair.
Completely wrong. He suits that sort of majestic kind of vibe that Queen had, and all of that is built into his guitar solos. Yeah. And they stand as pieces, for the most part, in their own right, on their own. With Dave Gilmour, he's got an emotional connect with the tracks. And I think this is the thing that we can learn, is he reels his audience in, not by playing lots, but by playing the best of the simple stuff. And sometimes maybe just using one note in a minor pentatonic that differs, or adding an additional note to make it really tick.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do, just to warm up and get jiggy with it, we've got here a Pink Floyd style backing track. A minor, C, F, D minor, A minor. It's not any particular Pink Floyd track, and I've done that on purpose because I don't want this to become a heavy Dave Gilmour style file.
Yep.
What I want us to do is look at Dave Gilmour's style, maybe look at some of the things that we can get from it, and look at how we can use that in our own playing.
Yeah, fantastic.
So shall we have a little bit of a play around with this backing track to start with?
Perfect.
So we're going to play over this track, a little bit of lick trading, you play a lick, I play a lick. Who do you want to go first? Me.
Over to you, Dan.
Always me. Me again. Okay, great.
Cool.
Okay, so what are we getting at? What we're not doing is copying exactly a Dave Gilmour solo or singling out a particular solo. There's so many good ones to pick. If you can read tab, if you're in a position to be able to follow this with the bending and the vibrato, you can probably look on Google and look for plenty of guitar tabs that are going to work for you.
Yeah.
No problem. What we're seeing here really is what we can get out of the Gilmour style. What makes it tick? What is it that maybe could benefit our own playing?
Yeah.
So what's the first thing after jamming over a track like that? It's kind of Floyd-esque. What's the first thing you're noticing using very basic pentatonic notes?
So think about where you're bending from and to. Some long bends with good sustain, some strong dynamics, and I think he brings it down quite a lot and then raises it back up.
Dynamics are all important, and leaving enough space. So don't feel you've got to fill every waking moment with a sound coming from your guitar. If you want to leave it for a bar or two, and then come in with maybe a note at a more poignant moment, this is quite possible. It's very effective with a slow track as well, because you don't want that kind of, especially with a slow track, you don't want that kind of unstoppable freight train kind of feeling about it, whereby you just feel you've got to, fill every waking moment with some kind of guitar lick. And so giving the track space is always a good idea in that regard, sort of wait and then place the lick in a good place. A lot of good players who rely on their melody more than anything else do this thing where they don't fill every waking minute with something. And sometimes that makes us uncomfortable when we're not playing. They want to fill the whole track with guitar, especially when it comes to their solo. And certainly there are some solos which work quite well like that. With a longer, more drawn-out thing, you can use that space and that waiting time to reel your audience in. Even playing over a blues, you can leave a little space in between some of the licks.
Yeah, that makes good sense.
Because that way you give the audience a chance to absorb what you've just played.
Seems like a regular thing in his phrasing is to have these kind of long, wailing bends, followed by a kind of another long wailing bend, and then maybe a pentatonic quick fill down, descending fill or something.
He often does the pattern kind of.
Yeah, like those sequences type.
Yeah, so that's going down in 3.
So we're just in the first position of the A minor scale.
So you can sort of angle that any way you choose. What I was choosing to do as well, which is quite effective, I think, over this track, is I was sometimes swapping my C for a B.
Yeah.
So you get this pattern.
Oh, yeah, okay. So you're kind of focusing on the ninth of the minor.
Yeah, so I'm adding the ninth. It adds a nice flavour.
Yeah, okay.
Probably particularly in the top notes I was doing that maybe, yeah.
So there you were bending up.
So I was bending from the 17.
Oh yeah, I
So
was
you've got the B there.
harping on that note there for a bit. That's the 12th fret of the B string.
That's it. And then finally down on the 9th fret of the D. So.
Cool, so we've got this starting with the bend.
That's it.
Yeah.
I sometimes feel players look for things in the wrong places. You know?
Yeah.
If I had a quid for every time I've had a player who's got a nice feel and all the rest of it, and they've gone, oh, show me these other scales. You've got to remember...
Just add a note, yeah, type thing.
You know, yeah, scales are not the be-all and end-all. They're a means to an end. They're not the end in itself. If you find the scales, like when you get beginners who go, show me all the strumming patterns, and it's almost like they've got it in their head that if they learn 200 strumming patterns, they're Bob Dylan then, aren't they? And it doesn't work quite as simply as that. I wish music could be put into such simple little sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boxes, but it doesn't work like that. Learning a scale, you've got to ask yourself, well, what's my reason for learning the scale? Well, obviously, if it's a scale that's kind of highly used in a lot of the music you play, or music that's around, like the major scale, the minor scale, the major and minor pentatonic, maybe a handful of the modes.
Yeah.
You know, all of those are fair game and absolutely useful, but none of them on their own will resurrect abysmal pain.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if you can get a minor pentatonic and make it sound good, then's a good time to start expanding maybe to some extra notes. If you're after new sounds and you don't want to lose the feel, because this is the other thing, is where we've got all our nice sort of pentatonic shapes laid out for us, which we sort of know and love. If we then go and mess that up by having to learn a whole new pattern, we're back to square one.
Yeah, you've lost... Well, you're trying to make sentences without realising you've already got the vocabulary type thing, I suppose.
Well, yeah, you've lost the flow because your hands are so used to doing the minor pentatonic thing. Whereas slipping in an extra note or taking a note out and substituting it for something else, to me, is a much more economic way. And we are talking about Dave Gilmour. We're talking about economy.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a much more economic way of getting a slightly different sound out of your scale. You know, if you were playing over a 12-bar blues and you were playing a minor pentatonic, you could learn a bunch of modes or something, and that would definitely be useful to you. But it might also be as good a start as to just include the major sixth. So in the key of A, that would be the F sharp. So instead of going E to G, you go E, F sharp, G.
Dorian type thing.
Yeah, you do a Dorian flavour without necessarily learning the entire Dorian mode.
Yeah, okay.
And all of a sudden, you've got something else you can use.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of worth, because very rarely do I sort of think of it in terms of notes. I often think of it in terms of patterns, which is, I kind of know the notes, but then I don't think of it like that often. But it's worth just sort of singling out, if you're going to be sitting down and working with a backing track for a while, kind of worth singling out those notes, isn't it? Going F sharp, that's the major sixth. And
work out with those wider gaps of 3 frets, like between the E and the G, which note, the F or the F sharp, sounds the best.
Yeah.
Between the A and the C, which note sounds the best, B or B flat? You choose.
Yeah, yeah.
You decide. But it's a really easy way of expanding what you already know.
Yeah.
You know, I found with scales, when I started learning scales, you talk about sort of learning the notes in scales. Once I started to kind of do longer runs and things, the thing that I noticed was that I could never seem to end on the right note. And then I realised, well, a way forward would be to end on the root note of the chord that I'm playing over at the end of the run. So if I'm landing on a C, you know, for a C chord, that's all going to work. Of course, the next step on was knowing what the notes
major
were.
Thirds.
So like if it's C major, it's going to be C, E and G. If it's C minor, it's C, E flat and G. Knowing that those are all fair game, and then deciding out of the extra 4 notes in the scale, in the minor or major scale, what one of those notes yields maybe a sound that I'm looking for. And so what happens is your scales and everything take on a new lease of life because you're thinking in note terms and you're connecting them to chords. Now this is one thing Dave must be so good at.
Yeah.
Actually linking what he's playing to what he's playing over.
Yeah.
Now, it may be an almost a sort of a knee-jerk reaction. Like, I hear it, I play it. I know for me, I don't always over-intellectualise things. And you don't have to over-intellectualise things to get the best from them. But
No.
You've got to have a little bit of knowledge of, you know, the fact that you're targeting something for a reason. So when you're playing over a certain chord, are you taking account of that? So when we go from A minor to C, you could play the same old thing, or you could acknowledge that the change has been made.
Yeah.
So if you're playing an E, which would be quite an innocent 5th note of A minor over the A minor, when you change to the C, that becomes the major 3rd, so it becomes quite an important pivotal note, and so on.
So stay on that E, let that E ring out over the change.
Let it ring out or go up to it, you know, so you're making a point of it. One of the biggest problems that people have when they start soloing is they're concentrating on so many different things, they're not listening to what they're soloing over.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely.
You know, they could be soloing over My Old Man's a Dustman.
Yeah.
Or One by Metallica. It doesn't really matter.
The music stops and they carry on.
As long as the music's going, they carry on like the Duracell bunny, and then when it stops, why have you stopped?
Or just carry on and forget about the music that they're playing.
So you've got to listen.
Yeah.
You know, it's why it's always preferable. You know, if you were doing a session and you had to pull a solo out of the bag, it would be preferable to either write down or have written down for you the chords in the progression so that you could connect your solo better to what's going on underneath. And in a pentatonic way, it's not that difficult. You know, it's not that difficult. You know, the notes are laid out. It's like shooting fish in a barrel, really. If you can't make the notes of the minor pentatonic fit what you're playing over when everything works together, then you probably want to be taking up knitting.
Yeah. I like that.
Maybe leave the guitar to people who can hear things. Golf, yes. Golf is good. Golf works. Go and buy yourself a pair of Rupert the Bear pants. But it's that thing of listening and being aware of what you're playing over. And as you said earlier, dynamics. Now, if you listen to Dave Gilmour's playing, often he'll actually go from one position to like the one an octave down or an octave up. you know, he'll make quite big jumps.
Yeah.
He doesn't sort of do what I do, where I sort of clamber up the neck. You know, that's my way of playing. Is I play often in quite a diagonal way across the guitar.
I saw you like sliding down perhaps a fifth, maybe even a sixth or something. That's pretty good, isn't it? It's good to be able to do that with enough confidence to hit the right note at the bottom.
Well, I think with Dave Gilmour, he's probably got, although he's going to make it sound the way he wants, he's over the years probably honed it down, and he's got a few patterns in different keys that he knows works, and they work for him. And so that's what he uses. It's not to say the other notes aren't fair game, but sometimes in the familiar patterns, like the first position, things are laid out in quite a user-friendly fashion. And so people often stick to that, and they might swing between the upper and lower octaves. You know, so they'll have a lick down here, and then they want to play something higher. They'll go straight up there and not really take account of
a bit in between.
That's it. It's just a different way of playing. That's all it is. Also, Dave Gilmour often uses the rich bass notes. Now, when we solo, sometimes the bass notes, I think, get a bit of a poor rap.
Yeah.
You know, the bass notes I've heard Brad Paisley use quite a lot of low notes to great effect. Dave Gilmour uses them all the time. You've only got to hear the beginning of Sorrow to hear those real, you know... very, you know, that deep guttural guitar sound is something to be embraced and used and abused.
So you're like on the bridge pickup with everything up, isn't it? It's
crank
like,
it up.
Like that kind of thing. Yeah.
Regular playing, if we were going back to our backing track.
Yeah, so easy fix, isn't it? It's like there's so much difference between the frequencies that you've kind of almost got two different instruments or two different voices.
Well, we so often don't use that growly low end unless we're playing chords.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
Often we'll play chords, but we won't always think melodically, or we'll play riffs down there.
Yeah.
But it's one of those places that you can go because other people don't go there.
Yeah. I guess in some ways, you know, you can play those bass notes with a bit of palm muting to take out that kind of guttural sound as well. Or you can stick the guttural sound.
You could mute them. It might end up sounding a little bit metal, but
yeah.
You know, or just throw it out there loud and proud.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You know, and let it sort of do its thing.
But there's a lot of dynamics just in what we discussed there. A lot of different ways of.
There are, and then you can use, and we talked about this many times, but engage your volume control on your guitar if you're using an overdriven sound to peel it back or let it rip.
Yeah.
You know, if a song is kind of softening out a little bit, you probably don't want to be ripping through it.
No.
Whereas if a song is going for it, then you have every right to wind it up, sir, and
go for it.
Let it fly. But thus far, we've got, let's have a little recap. So we've got the sort of guttural low-down notes, which often get missed. They're worth kind of putting into solos, because they really kind of growl. They growl with a sort of a kind of emotive majesty.
It's like a motorbike almost, isn't it? It's like an engine.
Yeah, it's got that real gritty, gravelly.
Yeah.
So they're well worth exploring. Even if you don't use them all the time, you don't always have to spend every hour up the dusty end. The other thing is rolling back and rolling on. So if a song's going for it, feel free to open the taps, but be sensitive to what you're playing over. If that song is a bit more peeled back, or the band have chilled out a little bit, then you should maybe peel back too. Otherwise, it's going to sound really badly mismatched. They're holding back and you're roaring through like an unstoppable freight train. No good.
Yeah.
You've got to work together. There is no I in team.
Yeah. No, fair play. Well put.
So when it comes to a band, you want to move together like one complete machine.
Yes, so you've got to listen. Yeah.
That's it. Listening to the chords you're playing over, that's another thing you can do. And as you say, when it comes to tone, maybe experiment a little bit. You can experiment with different effects. These days, you can buy packages for your computer for next to nothing with different effects if you want to kind of experiment before you go and lash 90 quid on a pedal or something. You listen to Dave Gilmour, sometimes he uses flangers, sometimes there's choruses. Frequently, on some of his cleaner parts, he uses a Dynocomp, an MXR Dynocomp. So it's a compressor. So it plumps out the sound, and it also makes it sustain and react more like an overdriven sound. So you get more sustain, much more fatness. It works very well as well on partially driven sounds that wouldn't sustain like that, but where you don't want the full levels of gain to be up. You want them to be a bit more calmed down. Use of delays and things which are atmospheric, such as reverbs, as well, if you're taking into account the sort of Dave Gilmour thing. Because there's this thing with Dave Gilmour where he's kind of a little bit timeless.
Yeah.
It's almost like his sound, as he plays with Pink Floyd, was nothing to do really with the blues.
Yeah.
He may have a Strat and all the rest of it, but I mean, he used an awful lot of different effects in different combinations. also had, I think, an EMG SPC on his guitar as well, which not many people may know, but he had a special set of EMG pickups made for him. And he had an SPC knob, which was a spatial expander.
Powered pickups?
Always powered, yeah. So the guitar he used, especially through the 80s, or late 80s, was, I believe, a USA 57 reissue in Candy Apple Red. But he'd then got EMGs loaded into it, and an SPC, which is called a spatial expander. Which is
like a phaser, isn't it?
I think it just expands the range of the pickups.
Right, okay.
So, although you may be sort of totting some good old single coils, this will allow them to do so much more.
Yeah.
So his approach...
Clever stuff, yeah.
Yeah, his approach to sound and approach to tone is very un-blues. Like, his approach to playing is quite the opposite. And sometimes it's quite interesting. He almost uses all of those different more spatial sounds to take that bluesy playing and make it fit in the backdrop of something that much more extravagant.
Yeah. Do
you know what I mean?
Yeah, so like, I guess you're saying like those kind of bluesy fills, those pentatonic bluesy fills.
Yeah, I mean, they would be at home in a 12-bar, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
If you gave him a sort of a rocking 12-bar and Dave played his usual stuff over it, you wouldn't go, that sounds terribly out of place.
No, that's right, yeah.
But his sound is the thing that he changes almost to sort of partially accommodate some of this more flamboyant, psychedelic Pink Floyd style.
You say about his playing being timeless, he's pretty timeless himself, isn't he? I mean, he almost looks younger now in some ways than he did.
He's a bit of an institution, is Dave Gilmour, that's for sure. But it's that usage, when you break it down, there's nothing really but simplicity. So, you could happily pull off the Dave Gilmour style by knowing just a handful of scale positions. He plays low down or play the octave up, and there'll be something maybe going on in the middle.
Yeah.
But he often goes from one position, as we said earlier, straight to a brand new position, if that's what he wants. You can hear it on the solo on the Turning Away, where he clearly starts in the 12th fret, first position of E minor, and then goes right down the bottom to the open position.
Yeah, open strings, that's something to... Not just the low strings, but all of those open strings there. They have a certain different resonance in some way, don't they?
They do. I mean, obviously, depending on the key that you're working in, that's going to make a difference to how many of those you can feasibly use. So, what else can we say? Any questions?
So there were a couple of big slides down from... Those kind of slides, are they quite a big feature of his playing?
I think he tends to use, as I say, sort of maybe several positions. So here we've got the 5th fret, position of A. We've got that an octave up at the 17th. And then I've got some notes sort of between the 15 and the 10.
So actually, yeah, there's some questions straight away as well, because like the bending is such a big part of what he's doing, really, isn't it? It's all bends and vibrato, and that's for me. I mean, people tend to just bosh out the bends.
Bosh out the bends.
But it's actually quite an advanced technique, isn't it? And I remember you doing some solos with only bending and things like that, and that's something worth looking at again, I think, for me at some stage.
I think
and
bending
vibrato as well is good.
The first thing with bending is to remember it's the accuracy factor is probably number one.
Yeah.
So I tend to use my ring finger in front, my third finger, with the second and first fingers behind. If I can't avoid it, and I have to bend with my first finger, well, so be it.
Yeah.
Usually you can avoid it. Several mistakes people make, putting your little finger up front. The little finger's really short. So if you try and kind of bend, although you've got four fingers down, it always feels weird with the little finger.
Yeah, it's not really got much of a tone to it, has it, really?
It just doesn't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Just, and you're going to soon run out of how far you can push that bend up, realistically. So getting hold of that note, making sure you can feel the neck behind your hand, because really pinning the string to the board, that's priority.
Yeah.
When it comes to the bending. So when you're whizzing around, dropping the thumb down and extending your fingers is paramount to kind of getting the dexterity going, but it's the opposite of what you want when you're bending.
Yeah.
So when you're bending, hold the thing like a cricket bat.
Yeah.
Hoik the thumb over the top if you want to. Use the neck as a lever. Push against all you have to. So if you're...
And listen as well.
Listen?
Yeah.
A good exercise to do is go up the C major scale in bends.
Yeah.
So start
on the B.
I would start on the 5th fret of the G. So a string that's more akin to bending.
Yeah.
And we go from C to D. D to E. E to F, F to G, G to A to B, B to C.
Stop there.
I would start, you want to keep it all in the key of C.
Ah.
And try a B string, same thing. And so on.
Yeah, nice.
But you get the feel on each string for how far you've got to push.
Yeah, that's a really good exercise. Yeah.
It is a good exercise.
Yeah,
and
nice one.
There's lots of different things out there, like you can get strings which are called balanced tension.
Yeah.
And they're supposed to feel the same across the board.
Yeah.
If that helps you out, then great. I wasn't so keen when I tried them, I must admit. I thought they sent my guitar out of tune.
Get a bit used to something, don't you, I suppose, as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of dialed into my good old-fashioned 10 to 46s, and so they ain't going anywhere. But, if you want to try things like that, certainly feel free to do so. That'll help with getting the basic intonation of bending down.
Yeah.
You could use the same example using a slide if you wanted to get that sort of intonation down.
Yeah, okay.
Once you've got that, it's then maybe going to specific pitches. So try going to maybe a whole tone, and then adding on top of that a semitone. So I'm on the 10th fret of the B.
Okay. Oh.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's a good exercise.
Yeah. Those things need to be looked at consistently. I do think bending's quite an advanced technique, and I don't think people necessarily always realise that. I mean, I think I definitely do, because I've I'm playing and I'm like, oh, I'm not quite happy with that. I'm not quite happy with
I
that.
think sometimes when people get the idea of bending,
Yeah.
they can bend, but it's a bit like, there you go, I've done a bend. I've sometimes written out bends for kids.
Yeah.
Like if I'm teaching kids and they're old enough kids, they're in their teens, and you're teaching them some licks and stuff, and you might have a bend like this. So it's got to reach the root at the end. And the first one's got to go from D to E.
Hard, isn't it?
To get it accurate and to get it fast enough so it all hangs together.
Yep.
But they'll either kind of make a bit of a mess of it, like that, or they'll, where they overcook it, or they'll undercook it. But that's not what I wrote.
Yeah.
You've got to make sure your bends are going to pitch.
Nice. Sweet.
Did I tell you my recording experience? I'm sorry if this bores everyone to tears out there, but when I was about 19 or 18, 19, I worked in a music shop, and they were kind enough to lend stuff out. And one day they lent me this Tascam 4-track tape recorder, because that's how we recorded back then, folks. Before the PCs came along. And so, you bought your chromium 90-minute tape.
Yeah.
And
BASF.
That's it. And the whole width of the tape was used, so you got 45 minutes recording, not 90. I recorded some stuff, and I listened back, and I thought, oh, that's all right, but the vibrato, cool, dear, that's not good. And when I heard my nasty nanny go vibrato, I decided that it had to be sorted and tackled.
Yeah.
So when you were talking about bending and vibrato, which we sort of put in the same kind of pot, when you're vibratoing, I was having this out actually with somebody this morning I was teaching, we were talking about this. When you bend and vibrato, so you bent the note, now you're going to vibrato. There's your target, you bent up to the right note. So you've then got to drop the string, bring it back up to pitch, drop the string, bring it back up to pitch. Yeah. That's how you get the vibrato right. If you want to sound like a nasty nanny goat Kirk Hammett vibrato, you get it up to pitch and then you push the note.
Mentioning no names.
No names, Kirk. Then you get it up to pitch, then you push it past pitch and then start warbling it. And it sounds crap.
Yeah.
So don't get it up to pitch and then push it. Get it up to pitch and let it drop. Now, when you're vibratoing on a static note, it's different. Because when you're vibratoing on a static note, the string as is, just sitting there, that's its 0 point. So when you vibrato, you're actually pulling it sharp. You're doing the opposite.
Yeah.
So when you bend, the string's under tension, you're letting it down in pitch, up in pitch, down in pitch, up in pitch.
Yeah.
When you're on a static note, you're pushing it up
that.
in pitch and then coming back to the 0 point.
Yeah. I mean, I realise I'm doing that, but I hadn't thought about it properly.
So
that should be nanny goating it, really, shouldn't it? But it doesn't.
If you pushed it outside of that, like,
oh yeah,
then it would sound awful because you.
So it's outside of that quarter or whatever it is, eighth.
The string has to come back to its natural point. It's got to come back to its 0 point.
Yeah.
The point that it would be in if you just struck the string and let it ring.
Yeah.
So that being the case, if you push it sharp and then start warbling it by pushing it sharp again and back again, sharp again and back again, you're coming back not to the 0 point but to the sharpened point.
Yeah, gotcha.
Now if you're bending and you bend it and then you bend it sharp and then you warble, you're doing the same thing. You're warbling but back up to the sharpened point, not back to the actual 0 point that the string needs to be in tune.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
People have the same problem with trem systems. massive problem with trem systems. They hold on to the trem bar
and put it up, and
well, you can put it up and all the rest of it, but if you hold on to the trem bar,
you're never going to get back to the...
Like a handbag snatch victim. You're going to get this. You're going to get that. If you want to do up movement, that's fine, but you've got to then let the trem settle.
It's got to be purposeful.
So I'm letting it settle. But if you hold on to it tightly, you know, even if you're being as gentle as you possibly can, it's really hard not to kind of send it out of tune.
Yeah.
In some capacity.
So if you are vibratoing, then, and if what matters is you going back to the static point.
That's it.
If you're doing that, does it matter how far you bend and then go back to the static point? Is it about the speed of... Do you see what I mean? So, I don't know, I'm going to hit the other string a bit too much, but like if I was to go...
Because it's coming back, and it's coming back in there's still a reasonable space of time. It sort of works.
Still.
You know, a great example of that is John Sykes playing on a lot of the Whitesnake 87 album. He does a lot of these, you know, gets this massive big sound with his Les Paul and does that kind of vibrato.
Yeah.
And it just sounds absolutely humongous.
Cool. Yeah, that's really helpful.
But give those things a go.
Yeah, will do. Thanks.
And folks out there, you know, give them a try. It wasn't exactly and wasn't meant to be a Gilmour style file.
Yeah.
Just using that as a springboard point for us.
Thank you very much, Dan.
No problem.
Stay tuned for more episodes, jams, improvisation ideas and well-informed thoughts about amps, pedals and guitar tone. If you enjoy this podcast, leave us a review on iTunes, find us on SoundCloud or see our website on tunein-toneup.com. Here you'll find show notes, tabs and further research and resources. It's also a good place to get in touch. We hope you're finding these lessons as interesting and as useful as I do, and if you have any suggestions, we'd love to hear them.